Welcome to the Black Eyed Barber Show. Do you think I look like a robber?
I do think you look like someone, but not a robber. But it's probably best I don't say. How you keeping, Ed?
It's been a tough go. I don't think everybody that's been through this is affected in some way.
Yeah.
It's a shock, and there's everybody, whether it's directly their family, feel particularly concerned about boxers, and everybody associated with the boxers. It's not just the boxers; it's the gyms, it's the sparring partners, it's the trainers, it's promoters. Everybody in the sport right now is instant furloughed.
Yeah.
And we don't know how long this is going to go on. So we just have to keep our fingers crossed that our doctors do a good job, find a vaccine sooner than later, and that we follow social distancing and to the best we can until we can get back to normal.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we agree. We're all in the same boat at the minute, aren't
we? The other part is keeping. It's so difficult for fighters. I mean, we got two former champions there that know how you do things on schedules. So it's not. You don't tell a boxer, "Oh, we've got a date for you a month and a half from now. Go into training right away." And on top of that, once we are ready to go, we've got this built up. It's like a dam. How many events and shows can we put on with this amazing backlog of fighters waiting to perform again? So we have to just. We're not in charge right now. All we can do is be ready.
No, we spoke about this a bit on the show. Everybody's saying that they're making plans and doing this, that, and other, but ultimately, Ed, nobody's making any plans until the government says yes or no. That's just where it is.
When people call to sanction fights, on the premise that, we'd like to sanction something and everybody's guessing on the date. So what we've decided to do from our end is just we're not sanctioning anything. Fights that were sanctioned, we're telling those fighters and their promoters that as soon as we can go forward, all our timing has changed. The 9 months to defend, we're not going to enforce that, obviously. That's stopped.
Yeah.
We have to keep in mind time to let them train. And we have to be sure that wherever they want to sanction the fight, put the fight on, it's not just the fighters who are willing to go and the broadcasters. The commissions have to be ready to go too.
Yeah.
So we need the okay from, in your particular case, the British board. We'll have to get all the health questions answered. Even if we do studio fights, we have the same question for studio fights. That's great. That's the best thing about Skype. It's the best thing about we all celebrated the holidays either on all these different networks. We had probably 24 people at one time celebrating the holidays this way.
Yeah.
So you get to see the children and everybody.
So Ed, tell us a little bit. Let's go back a bit. Tell us about how you set up the IBO and what were you thinking behind it?
Well, when I first started with the IBO, which was about 2000, it seemed to me an easy thing to start because all of us have been in boxing for a long time. All of us have dealt with the three of us, the three of you and myself, there's no secrets in boxing. You know what every organization is about. You know what every promoter is about. You know the sport. You know all about the commissions and how it works. And I felt naively at the time that let's do all the things in boxing that we can do and do them right, and make some changes in the sport that people correct the things that in the sport that people know are not being done correctly. Well, that was being very naive on my part, because boxing works the way it is now, whether we like it or not. The way boxing is set up, it works for everybody in the sport with the knowledge of how do you get to be a champion? Well, you have to work with a certain promoter. And how does that promoter advance you? Well, he has to work with certain sanctioning bodies. And how do those sanctioning bodies work? Well, they have to work with certain broadcasters. So, you know, the way the sport works works for those that are with the right connections. So our idea was, well, let's first change ratings. I'll do this very quickly because most of you know this. Let's change the ratings to they're computerized. Let's give a shot to the fighters who can't get into the top 10 or 12 because they're not hooked up with the right promoter or the right manager or the right sanctioning body. So let's do computerized ratings. And let's not do mandatories the same way, so that we can give the promoters the right to put on the fights that the public wants to see, not necessarily the fights that are mandatories that are not commercially viable. Let's be transparent. Let's be accessible. Let's be honest. All those things. We realized right away that we were up against it, because the journalists and the people in the business they said to us, rightfully so, there are too many sanctioning bodies already. Too many titles. You got 4 championships. We don't want more titles. There's already too many. You know, you had a lot of old timers that wanted to go back to 8 champions with 1 title each. No matter how much you would tell them that, well, boxers have to make a living, and they can make a living by becoming champions of these sanctioning bodies. So at the time, the argument was, and it was a correct argument, there are already too many champions. We don't want a 5th sanctioning body offering a 5th world championship. The problem, and I agreed with these journalists who I've known for 30, 40 years, a lot of them. I understand your motives, and you're not wrong. But that argument, in my mind, went away in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. That's now become a hypocritical argument to say we don't have room for the IBO's champion. We've only had 1 world champion ever. We've had great champions all along the way. That's another discussion we can have today. But the argument, very simply, was, your argument, boxing writers, are that there are too many titles. When I heard, now we've got, each sanctioning body might have 3, 4, 5 world champions. So now you got, out of four sanctioning bodies, instead of having 4 times 17 is 68. Well, each sanctioning body might have 68 quasi-world champions. And to the broadcasters that I know, I say, you know, some of you won't recognize the IBO on your broadcast. But then I see interim blank title, silver blank title, gold black title, You make up a name, we got one for you for another kind of world title.
Yeah.
Regular, recess, it goes on and on and on as all these different world titles. And now you have eliminators to become a world champion at what level? Not the world champion in that particular sanctioning body, but perhaps one of those levels of world champions. So your argument that the IBO shouldn't be allowed to get recognition falls on deaf ears for me now, because we have one world champion. We've always had one world champion.
What do you think it does to sport, Ed, when you see these gold champion, silver champion, franchise champion, champion in waiting, champion emeritus, interim champion? What do you think it does to the sport as a whole?
I think it's watering down the sport terribly. If you have too much of a product, which was the argument originally that they gave to me, we have enough product. We have 4 world champions. We don't want another product. But if you put too much of a product on the market, the fans are confused enough already. But you put on more world titles and more quasi titles, you're watering down the value of it. Now, I understand the need for titles for the fighters, but that argument that you still get arguments that they're fine, that it's fine to have. I kid around with the boxing writers that I've known for years. I said, I finally figured out how the IBO was going to go. We're going to have an intergalactic title. That's more than the world. Our title is going to be the entire universe. We're going to call it the intergalactic title. We're going to self-proclaim that title is the one title that counts. And we'll start that title with our most well-known, our marquee champions. Of course, it's just a joke. I mean, it's not going to happen. We've survived. The point I try to get across to a lot of managers and champions is, you might say, well, how did we survive in this atmosphere of, we don't want to recognize the IBO. We've already got 4 major champions. Ask yourself the question, it's a simple question. How come we've had 30, 40 major marquee champions over the last 20 years? Why do you think they're doing that? Just for the bling, for that belt? They're not that stupid, and their managers are not that stupid, and their promoters are not that stupid, and they're not doing it because I get along with the promoter or the manager. They're doing it for some very valid reasons. One of the reasons is, I mean, you've both been world champions. There could have been a time in Anthony's career where someone said, your mandatory is so-and-so. Yeah. And your mandatory, how much am I going to earn to fight that mandatory? Yeah. And they tell you what you're going to be paid. And you say, well, wait a second, I could fight this other fighter here and make double or triple that.
Of course, yeah.
I don't want to fight that mandatory. But you have no choice. So one of the things we brought to the table was, you're a marquee champion. Hold the IBO title. It's insurance. Not only is it insurance, it's insurance if you're in a situation where commercially it doesn't work for you with whatever your mandatory is. So it's insurance for that situation. Also, if you hold our title, it's not derogatory to you. Everybody knows you're one of the best. So it's not putting you down. And if you have to negotiate in certain situations, you have a negotiating tool. here I am the IBO champion. I've held it 5 times, 6 times, 8 times. As you know, after 5 defenses, we award a championship ring. We've got a lot of fighters out there, great fighters who have more than 5 IBO world title defenses.
Yeah.
So it's an astute business move. It doesn't hurt you. And I'm sure in a lot of cases, great fighters are pressured not to hold the IBO title. And I understand that. We've had fighters who had to relinquish. We don't hold anything against those fighters. Business is business. Sometimes you have to make a business decision that is not good for the IBO, but we don't blame fighters who've had to relinquish under certain circumstances. But most of our marquee champions have not had to relinquish. So that's where we are today. We're very fundamentally sound financially. Everybody who works for the IBO is still employed by the IBO. Myself and the other owners who own part of the IBO, we all went into the sport because we love the sport. We've all made livings in other areas not involved with boxing. We're in boxing because we love boxing. So the IBO will be here a year from now, it'll be here 2 years from now, it'll be here 5 years from now. Hopefully it gets more recognition. You know, there's a big difference. I always get involved when I have these discussions. It's great to talk to ex-champions also, former champions, even though I don't know why Anthony should still be fighting, but
I've done it. Maybe I was lightweight.
I know you've done it all.
He's
Yeah,
done it.
and when you retire at the top, it's a good place to retire.
Yeah.
You know, it really
Thank
is.
you.
It's a rarity, and it's good to see that as well.
No, thank you.
I think that boxing will be back. We feel that we will always be involved because we offer something different. It's just that simple. People say, doesn't it frustrate you not to be part of a big 5? I said, well, we really, we just want to be known as an independent sanctioning body that's respected. We don't have to be part of the big 5. The other sanctioning bodies are operating with a different business model. It's not an illegal business model. They're entitled to do it. Their business model is, their ratings are done differently. It's based upon a lot of other factors. Nothing illegal about that. I mean, part of the factors are win one of our junior titles and get you in the ratings. Fight this eliminator. We have eliminators also, so I shouldn't be begrudging that. But their goal is to have more and more fights, more and more titles. That's not our goal. Never has been and never will be.
Do you see it reaching a saturation point where there can't be any more titles to come up with, or is it?
I think it has, but a lot of it's up to the broadcasters too.
Yeah.
If a broadcaster wants to say this is a world title when every boxing fan knows it's really not a world title, I think those broadcasters eventually will wake up and say, wait a second, we have to. It would be better for our sport as a whole for them to recognize, oh, this is a junior title. This is an entry-level title. Oh, this is a title that'll get him to the pinnacle of the sport. I think that I use this as an illustration. If you have too much of any product, you devalue the product.
Yeah.
You can make any product, too many of them. There was I read a year or two ago, there was a major watch company that destroyed $500 million of their watches. You ever hear that story?
I've not heard this story.
No, it's a true story, by the way.
Really?
Google it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. because they realized they were one of the, they make all these expensive watches for, I don't want to mention brands, but if you Google it, you'll find it.
Yeah.
And they realized that there was so much product out there that people didn't want to spend $30,000 because there were, every store they walked into, there were 100 of those $30,000 watches. So they lost their, they said, wait a second, we produced too much of this very valuable product that's now losing its value because we produced too many of them. So they literally destroyed them.
Yeah.
Destroyed them. Not sold them for less. Destroyed them. Look it up, Google it, and you'll find that to be the case. I think that, I'm not saying, listen, it's great for a young fighter to have any title. It makes them feel really, really special. It's like kids love medals or trophies. But when you're doing something professionally, you want to be not just a monetary reward, but you want something to say, look, I'm a title holder. And there's room for those, and they should be available at costs that make sense, even for the shows that are not televised. And there is room for those titles. There should be those titles. They're recognized for what they are, whether they be youth title or for a particular geographical area. I think what the board does is great. You know, there's area titles. There's levels of titles. They're not holding them out as world titles, but it means a lot to these young fighters to hold these titles. And it gives them an enthusiasm to continue in the sport.
Do you ever see a situation where the other sanctioning bodies do go back to how they were before and just have one champion?
No.
You don't see that happening. You don't think
No, I don't. You can label it. You can label it what you want. I'm not going to do that. But do I see that happening? No. And they have it's an interesting concept, and I've said this to some of the, it's not something I haven't said to some of the presidents of these sanctioning bodies, because all in all, we're not a threat to them, because they've made arrangements and regulations within themselves, between themselves, to be the top four, to be the big four. So, like at times, someone will say to me, "Well, we're not right. We can't recognize this. This is a unification fight." I said, "Why not?" Because the big four will only call fights unifications if it's amongst themselves.
Yeah.
But a fact is a fact. If you hold our title and you're fighting another champion of another sanctioning body, it is what it is. It's a unification fight. Now, if the other sanctioning body doesn't want to call it a unification fight, that's up to them. They're entitled to do that. That's their rules. That's facts of fact. Yes.
No, sorry, you were still cheating. I'll wait till you start.
Okay.
I was just going to ask a question.
Well, you've given me a pulpit, even though I'm not a preacher. And if there was any related to any business, if you have a business or you've got the only 4 people in that business, or the only 4 companies in that business, and you have a monopoly on that business, really, truly, would you want to invite someone into that monopoly? No.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, we have all the business in this monopoly. So why would we want to bring in another business into our business when we've got all the business, or most of it? So they don't. There's no incentive or reason to partner up with us, and we don't want to partner up with them anyway because we have different rules. We just we want something a little bit different than recognition. We want respect. And the two are not always the same, by the way. You can be respected and be more recognized. And you can be more recognized and less respected. I've always wanted to see somebody do it. I can't do it, and I wouldn't do it. But do a survey, do it online, and put 10 criteria down and say rank the sanctioning bodies, and put these criteria down. Recognition. Well, we'd know all who would come out 1 through 4. That's easy. Recognition, just the term recognition. But then put down some other words like transparency, integrity, uniform rules that are equally interpreted every time, that are enforced for all equally the same. Responsibility to the sport. Make up your own 10. Just put in some other values besides recognition. Trust, the presidents, the way they conduct an event. Put in 20 different criteria. I'm sure that we won't be on the top on these because fans are fans. So a lot of fans still say, oh, the IBO, why even mention it? That's an old record that we've been hearing for a long time. But if they started looking into the background somewhat, and perhaps we'll get some more people, more broadcasters, perhaps more promoters, and more. We'll continue to get. I'm sure we'll continue to get marquee fighters who will come to the IBO for very solid reasons. The other thing that you know this, Rich. We tell our champions, we're here to give you the best possible officials we can. We want a level playing field. We just want the winner to be the winner. Now that works well for champions that are really champions, because that's all champions want. They want a level playing field. They want to know that the officials that are assigned are going to judge what they see. White corner versus red corner versus blue corner. They don't want judges that they're worried about.
Yeah.
So, we're extremely harsh on our judges. Every fight is analyzed after every fight. All our judges are rated, not for the public, for ourselves. They get ratings if by how they compare to the other judges, where the fight took place, and what happens when a fight takes place in their own country. They still judge it by how they see it. And each year, judges are not renewed. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
I don't want to worry about that. I got enough to worry about at a fight without worrying about the officials I assign.
Yeah.
So that's what the IBO is about. Do we are we at the level of the other sanctioning bodies in terms of recognition? No. But there's a place for us, I think. There's a place for us and fighters that can walk in the ring and feel good about it. You've had them, Rich. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
You notice some of the fighters that you've had, we don't have to mention names, but they want to keep our title for reasons.
Yeah.
Solid reasons.
Yeah.
Anthony Joshua now, Klitschko over the years.
Yeah.
Lennox.
Yeah.
Lennox was always good to us, and
Yeah.
not because he liked us. I mean, I mutual respect there, of course, but because it was good for his career in every respect.
So really, the IBO role is just to be you see it as just to be the steady, fair ship in the middle of the stormy waters, where you just kind of do your own thing and just do what's right and fair.
Fair as can be.
Yeah.
Cannot. Listen, people over the years have said to me, "Why don't you do the same thing? Why don't you just have ratings that are more rather than objective, just subjective? And why don't you do the same thing? You know, when you have a really close relationship or you have a built-in business relationship, try to help those fighters more than you would the way you do it now, which is every fighter who fights gets rated.
Yeah.
And our answer is no, we have the steps if you want to take them. If you win our if you have to have a certain rating to win our Intercontinental title, which is our next level title. If you win, you have to fight a fighter a certain ranking in our computerized rankings. You beat him, we take you out of the ratings. And once you're out of the ratings, you're not listed in the top of our range. You're just the Intercontinental champion. You are now eligible to fight for the world title. And with certain other criteria, which is fight 3 fighters within 18 months, within a certain ranking distance, and approved by us, particularly the last one, who has to be top 25 ranked and approved, you become the mandatory. People don't know that exists because they don't follow us closely. We've used it, it works, and we will do eliminators too. You know, you got 2 fighters that are undefeated and they're both equally ranked in our criteria. Fight each other, the winner becomes a mandatory. We got one coming up when we get back on board. The other negative that we have is we can't have a top 15. We have a top 35. Because if it's a top 15, there's too many other fighters that are top 15 in the other sanctioning bodies that we can't compete with. Not saying that we do have top 15s that fight for our title, of course, but sometimes if you want to compare other top 15s and look at where those other top 15s and other sanctioning bodies are in BoxRec or in our ratings, you'll find a lot of them are not in our top 35.
Yeah.
I mean, it jumps right at it. So we feel that that's a criteria that's, if you can make our top 35, you're world class. You just are. And of course, you have to have positive records. You can't be coming off a lot of losses and that kind of thing. So I have curiosity. So I have the guy we're playing with, the little boy there. He defies everything in boxing.
It's not Johnny Nelson, Ed.
Who is it?
It's our producer.
Who is it?
It's our producer who produces the videos. Johnny.
Oh, tell him to pay attention.
No, he's not being rude. It's our production guy who's.
Now I see. Oh, he's African American. Okay, I couldn't see.
Yeah, Johnny's not lost that much weight. Trust me.
Right. I recognize Anthony, but I didn't.
Yeah.
No, because I was looking forward to ask Nelson how anybody could have a career like that. Because
I think
it's age defying.
He's always just really grateful for the career he had.
Yeah, I mean, how you could, win your last 20 fights after being, just not a journeyman, but just a good fighter, and then go another 15 or 20 fights as a world champion is phenomenally managed, phenomenally everything.
Yeah, well, Johnny will tell you he always kept himself fit and ready.
And great, always kept himself.
Show, they were always ready to jump in.
And Anthony, I always wanted to fight for our title, but it just never happened.
Mate, I wish you would have spoke before the end of my career.
I wish
you would have done. Because obviously, being a Manchester lad, I knew the IBO sort of well. We was actually talking about one of the great IBO fights with Sebastian Rothman and Carl Thompson, who was a Manchester lad. Don't know if you remember that one. Joe Rich, obviously, we were talking about it last week, and Ricky Hatton had the belt for a bit, and Michael Ayres, Wayne Rigby. You're in a great state. You've got 2 of the biggest sort of names in boxing holding the IBO world title, and proudly in Anthony Joshua and Gennady Golovkin.
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite fight over the years, Ed?
Yes. It's not one of my own. It's not one of my own, but my favorite fight of all time for me. First of all, I just want to mention Carl Thompson. People don't know that when David Hay was coming up.
Yeah.
He challenged Carl Thompson for our title.
Yes.
That sort of got
remember it
disappeared in history. You know, like
Yes.
disappeared. So I always say, geez, it's amazing that got no notoriety
Yeah.
after the fact. But my favorite fight of all time was when I was with the WBO,
Okay.
and I was chairman of the championships committee at the time, and Chris Eubank fought Nigel Benn.
Wow. Yes. At Old Trafford.
Yes, I think that was the fight, and I was the supervisor.
Yes.
And I think, well, I know Eubank was undefeated at the time, but I think Nigel Benn was also, but I'm not sure.
Was it the first fight?
The first fight, not the
lost to
second fight.
Watson.
It was the first fight.
It was the first
First
fight.
fight at Old Trafford.
Is that where it was?
At Old Trafford. At
Yeah.
Manchester United's ground. Yeah.
Yeah. And Richard Steele was the referee.
Yes.
And I'd been going to fights 15 years, you know, so it wasn't like I hadn't seen a lot of championship fights. That was the best fight I ever saw. These, I don't know if it's available on YouTube or something, but both fighters just gave 110% of each other in that fight. They both kept on taking over, and then the other fighter would take over, and coming back, and then the other fighter would come back. And it went back and forth and back and forth. And then I went into the dressing room of each fighter afterwards, and I said to both fighters, you guys are both superstars and world champions. Because I never saw a fighter. That's the best fight I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, well, he still spoke about today, so that tells you the quality of it, doesn't it?
Oh my God. It just, the skills and the heart and the preparation and the, you know, the amount of effort they put in to get ready for the fight and then to put it all on the line. That would be my number one. Now, I've seen a lot of crazy fights since that are just unmemorable. Lennox Lewis getting knocked out in South Africa.
Wow, Rackman, yeah. I just realised the first fight was in Birmingham, wasn't it?
You were at NEC, yeah.
NEC. So, yeah, the Rackman fight, the Rackman and Lewis.
Yeah, well, I train myself over the years that when I'm at ringside, not to show emotion. Because I'm not there as a fan. I'm just there doing my job. And I've never, ever shown any emotion. If you look at any fights, you will never see. I'm sitting there doing my job and whatever. But when Lennox got knocked out by Rockman, I jumped out of my chair. And the camera just happened to be facing me. And I said, I don't bet on fights, obviously. I said, I would have bet anything that Lennox was going to win that fight, as far as the quality of the fighters.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he came back and
did it again.
got his title back.
Yeah. Well, Ed, we thank you for joining us and taking us through what it means to boxing.
It's a disease we never lose, by the way.
It's a
good disease.
Yeah.
Once you're injected with it, you've got it for life.
Yeah.
But it's a good disease. And it's an enjoyable one. And who's with the producer? The producer's got the thing in his mouth, but who's with the producer?
That's the latest.
Okay. Okay, guys. Not great chatting.
Thank you so much.
Stay well and stay safe and stay home.
And you. Take care, mate.
Take care, mate.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hope you enjoyed Blackout Barber Show. Please like and subscribe. And if you've got any complaints, remember my name's Richard Potson. Just saying. And that's Johnny Nelson.
Look at you. You're running in circles. Which way will you turn?